Okay, shall we start? Yeah. Morning. Welcome. These are not the practices you're looking for. So this is I guess this is the first time we've done this this talk in a public session. The first time we've done this, we've run through this with a number of our clients. Anyway, let's get cracking with it. This is that's me at the top there with a tie on, which is quite unusual. This is my colleague and friend and co-author and partner.
Wearing black, which is not so unusual.
Business partner. And that's the kind of stuff we've done over the years. So we've done, yeah, I think I've been involved in just about every role in product development over the years that I've been involved in IT. Same with yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've done everything from many years ago, before I was grey. I used to be a coder. That was my main sort of focus. But you move through the roles as you go. So most of our work's involved with government departments in the UK, but also stuff in the US and increasingly in Europe. But we work with small companies as well. So I was just doing some stuff this week with a small outfit, 20, 30 people, trying to be more agile.
So you might have picked up from the title that there might be a little bit of a hint of Star Wars along with this. So if you've never seen Star Wars, I might lose you on some parts. But I have a lightsaber, so it'll be okay. The reason we thought about Star Wars because we think that the Star Wars movies make an interesting metaphor for software process improvement. Bear with me, it'll make sense eventually. But don't worry, we're not going to cover the prequels, and there's no Jar Jar, so it's not going to be horrible. It'll be fine. We don't have a bad feeling about this. It's going to be okay. Famous last words. The reason we think, though, that Star Wars makes a good metaphor is starting at episode 4 for the non-geeks in the room, is that we start thinking about a new hope.
So I remember one of the drivers for me getting involved as a coach and mentor. What led me down that route was an increasing frustration as I worked on several projects, and wherever I seemed to work, I seemed to be exposed to a series of challenges that I needed to overcome. And I worked my way from the making the code better, making the testing of the code better, to then trying to find a way of discovering my client's needs better, my user needs, so working through the requirements stack. Then the planning aspect came out of it, then the engagement with the execs. But I guess in the mid-90s, late 90s, things started to look better. There was a glimmer of hope on the horizon, the emergence of Agile. We were going to change the industry. We actually got people iterating. I worked with Rational Software, worked for Rational for a number of years, so the old Rational Unified Process.
So were you part of the Evil Empire?
I was part of the Evil Empire, yeah. And I worked with loads of clients, and I just couldn't get people to iterate. I worked through that model time and time again, big organizations, small organizations, and I just couldn't get people to get this cycle going. So you know what it was like. I'm sure we've experienced this sort of thing where an iteration, 6 months. What's that about? What's that? There's no feedback happening there, or certainly no quick feedback. So the Agile stuff, for me, the great thing about this was it gave me a way, a mechanism, a set of tools where I could get people to think in shorter cycles, to actually start that feedback loop. So I think we made a massive leap there, and we certainly, I believe we changed the industry for the better and for good. We did a good thing. I mean, this was, how many of you have worked on systems where you deliver something and the customer says, well, that's not what I wanted. So this is where we came from, isn't it? So that customer engagement, the whole concept behind Scrum and other Agile methods is focusing on this. I was just doing some, I'm in the middle of a training course. I'm one of the coaches on this training at the moment, and we just spent the last 2 days drilling into the delegates about the importance of this, getting this engagement working so that you can generate the right set of user stories. The other thing that happened was we tried to get our execs, our leaders, to look, we're a bunch of professionals here. Trust us to do this job. Let me and my team, my colleagues, just let us get on with the work. Trust us. Okay. There's a talk about that later. I think that's true. We're at an Agile conference. We've had some fantastic successes. The industry's abuzz with this. We've got large organisations, public and private sector, crying out for this to change their businesses. There's a load of stuff flying around on Twitter at the moment by a hashtag, #digital, I think, isn't digital transformation. And it's all about getting this stuff elevated into the heads of execs.
I think that's really weird though. It sounds to me like going from tapes to CDs.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's the buzzword.
That's interesting actually, because I was this training course I was on or running. One of the exercises is basically to get the teams to build a website. And one of the delegates said, "So what do you mean by a digital channel? Is that a catalogue of products? Is it telephone?" And it's like, no, that's not really what I meant.
Yeah.
So,
talking to them might be better.
Anyway, I hope you recognise this, at least recognise it.
Is anyone completely unfamiliar with the manifesto? That's a directed question, isn't it? I shouldn't ask those, but because we don't want to spend too much time on that yet. People are going to know about the manifesto, and there's a talk about that later. The thing is, though, that I mean, it's really important, and the spirit behind it is really important, and yet the amount of times you see people doing an Agile training course or an Agile change in an organisation about individuals' interactions, and where they start with is process and tools. Well, that's not doing it right. There's been an over-reliance on the rules and the tooling, and we're going to get back to that, and that's where our story's going. But I strongly believe in the manifesto. We're going to show a different manifesto later, and it's not to replace it in any way. It's just to sort of build out from it. Because one of the other things is you get manifesto zealots, which say, if it's not in the manifesto, we're not going to do it. That's not very adaptive, is it? That's just following rules again. But the principle behind this kind of idea of valuing this stuff more than that stuff is the point. And it doesn't mean there's no value over there. It just means that this is the side we want to lean on. Sorry, that was your slide, wasn't it?
That's fine.
The New Hope was interesting. We saw that, and it's not new now. It's been around for a while. What we've seen is a lot of organisations struggle to apply these concepts and these philosophies to their work. Which, maybe that's a good thing. If they didn't, there wouldn't be any conferences about it. We wouldn't be able to talk about it. But people do struggle, and they struggle especially at scale. And we're going to come back to scale about the different types of scale later, because it's not all the same thing. What we've seen in a lot of organisations, especially the bigger ones, is a lot of conflict between the sort of the traditional establishment, program management, project management, and agile ways of working. There doesn't need to be a conflict, but there is, and often the way it tends to roll out. And we've seen tons of good practice, but it sadly just not joined up. And often the benefits of even iterating are undermined by the organisational context. And I guess that's what we're all about. That's why we're talking about holistic software development, because we've been concentrating on the business of doing software, not just the technical practices, because I think we kind of get the technical practices and people can do them really well. But if the business isn't lined up with it, it fails anyway, and that's sad. And one of the big problems is sometimes, mastery is low. You can't become a master in something by going on a 3-day course and sitting still. You can learn some basics, but it doesn't make an expert. And we're going to come back to that as well, about mastery and levels of mastery and how that works. And some people say that's a little bit rude, but and I said there'd be no Jar Jar, but there's Jar Jar, so maybe we can't be trusted. So what we've seen is the Empire striking back.
See it all the time. The examples like we must report our progress based on our financial variance from plan. That's nothing to do with anything that's in the manifesto. That's a reversion to old style management practice.
So I work with a department that do that. They profess to be an Agile department, and they've got literally hundreds of allegedly Agile teams working in an Agile and Lean enterprise. And their biggest claim to success is that they have a 0.5% financial variance and an under 1% outturn on the portfolio, which all means that basically their financial planning is so accurate it's suspicious.
Here's a quote from one of their program managers. This is a direct quote. "If only now I could get predictability of the content of releases."
Yeah. So they're pulling on the organisation based on financial variance. They want to control the money. And when you control the money beyond anything else, that doesn't necessarily lead to great behaviours. And we're going to explore some of them. So one of the things we see a lot of is cargo cult adoption. And there's a story behind this of people, I won't bore you with the metaphor, but the idea is that people use the words and the language and some of the ceremonies of a way of doing something without actually getting the point.
Is that a familiar term?
Yeah. So it comes from, it's an anthropological case study, I think, where people were landing planes and leaving food aid and that kind of thing, and then they didn't do it again. And a local tribe who were pretty out of touch with technology and that kind of thing, then thought that if they built things that looked like runways, stuff would come down from the sky and leave them goods. So it developed a kind of quasi-religious kind of thing, that people think if you follow the ceremonies, good things will happen. And you see that all the time with Scrum. I do. I go to teams and they say, yeah, we're Agile, we're awesome. And we do stand-ups and we do sprints. And you say, oh yeah, that's cool, how long are your sprints? And they go, 2 or 3 months. And we do stand-ups. How often do you do those? Every day. We report to the project manager what we've been doing yesterday. That's not the point. That's not what the manifesto is about. That's not what Scrum is about. But people sometimes blindly follow some of the ceremonies, and worse, they use the language to wrap up the old ways of working. So what we see is a lot of traditional ways of working in organisations dressed up in some Agile language. You can see that by just doing a job search for Scrum Master, and it'll say, in most of them, they require you to manage a team of people. That's not what Scrum Master is meant to be, but that's what the job description is. So you're going to get people that want to manage teams. You get project managers becoming Scrum Masters. You put the new labels on the old ways of working. You don't change the ways of working. You just get the old ways of working. But everyone's even more confused about them because the names have changed.
The client that I'm currently engaged with doesn't have Scrum Masters, they have delivery managers. But they kind of take 90% of the responsibility of what a Scrum Master does. But they've changed the title. Don't understand why. And that's what's happened. I remember a few years ago, a client at a stand-up, and has anybody seen this happen, where the Scrum Master comes with his pipe and he goes around the circle and he's making notes but never actually contributes anything. Well, he does contribute something, but only in a negative way.
Actually, I did that in a stand-up last week.
Did you?
Not that. I did the flip of it, where the guy was doing that, and I was in the team, and I said to him, "Oh yeah, so what did you do yesterday?" And he looked a bit stumped. He didn't answer me. In fact, he looked offended that I had the effect to ask him, but never mind.
Is this something that do you see this? The release planning as a problem? We seem to have lost the art of thinking beyond the end of a sprint in a lot of cases.
I see this a lot with scale issues, actually. If you're a small team, a small organisation building a greenfield product, it's less of a big deal. If you're in a team that's working to an annual portfolio and a budgeting cycle, that's when it turns into a bigger deal, especially when you've got lots of teams working together that then have to integrate their stuff afterwards. So a lot of the organisations that I've seen, they focus on starting to sprint on day one. That's the most important thing. And they don't think about where they're sprinting to. And so when you then try and integrate across multiple teams, stuff doesn't work. And they tend to find it out late. They don't continuously integrate at a high level. They do it at a low level, but not at a high level.
What's deeply ironic about that is that the organisation has replicated all of the faults of the old waterfall method of delivery. But they've got agile teams. It's flawed.
Is that something that you guys recognise? Do you see release planning being difficult in organisations? Can I get a show of hands if people think that that's vaguely true sometimes? That's interesting. So
this point here is it's kind of a dig bias at directive management and not trusting a team to actually build the product. Being directed. So nobody told Luke what to aim at, and well, they gave him a hint of what to aim at, but they didn't tell him when to get into the slot and make the final attack run. But it boils down to this, I think. It's kind of the cargo code thing. Organisations don't actually understand or believe the values in the manifesto. They don't live by the values. They want to do agile, not be agile.
So one of the big problems that we've seen in large organisations, especially the ones doing systems of systems development, where they're having to do that big integration, is you get development teams spinning really fast, and they can be doing really good work. So they can be, very professionally iterating and being pretty agile, but they do it in the absence often of strategic context, and they know that's wrong. They know that they're building products quickly, but not in line to any kind of corporate strategy or for any business value. But they can't seem to get over the hump. They can't get customer involvement. They can't get business direction. They have to do something. They're being paid to, so they do. And they do the very best they can, but they're still undermined often by an organisational structure that doesn't give them context. We see the same with architectural context, especially in that systems of systems issue. And teams, the amount of teams I've gone to where I go to retros and they say, we can't get a customer. The business is too busy to give us any customer involvement, and too busy to give us customer time, which is deeply frustrating, because actually these organisations can't afford not to provide customer effort, but they often feel they don't. So I think there's a talk on that later as well. I think this line about how far you go on that seesaw between working out what you're going to do in terms of requirements and architecture, whilst avoiding big upfront architecture and requirements, that there's a balancing point there. And where that balancing point is, I think is different for each bit of work, for each culture, for each team. I don't think it's something you simply follow the rules and it says, do this, create this artifact, and then you go. That's not agile, that's how things were 15 years ago.
Another issue that I've come across is it kind of hooks into the not believing or not living by the values. We've got these development teams, we've got agile teams working, but we expect them to report using the old methods. So I want to align your sprint planning with my 400-line Gantt chart or 4,000-line Gantt chart I once saw, which was completely useless for everybody. So that's a problem. And I think in some respects, we shoot ourselves in the foot with a bit of the sort of the production type metaphors that we use to describe how we build software. So we make analogies to explain software development in terms of building bridges or building cars on a production line. That's not how creation of software works. It's even a different economic cycle. So not only does the metaphor not work, the economics of it don't stack up. If you think about the investment and the cost in building a production line to churn out Ford Focuses, it's spread much more evenly over the lifetime of the product. Where with a piece of software, the investment is all up front, but the cost of instantiating another version or another instance of that product is virtually nil. So the economics don't work either.
So anyone heard of Conway's Law? I don't want to be too academic, but Conway's Law was, I think, proposed in the 70s that said, along the lines of, the way you structure your team is the way you'll build your stuff. And it was done in a development context. It was kind of the idea that if you have 3 developers and you ask them to build a compiler, you'll probably get a free-pass compiler. If you have an organization structured into, say, a platforms and data team and analytics and GUI teams, then when you ask for a new business capability, you're probably going to get 3 major components. You're going to get a platform and data component, analytics, and a GUI. Interestingly, though, Conway's Law applies to people architectures as well as just system architectures, and it defends itself. If you have lines of business in an organization and you want to radically change the business, those 3 lines of business, assuming there's 3, are going to create a force that stops the change, and that's the homomorphic force, which reinforces its own structure. I've seen this in an organization that wants to do a radical transformational change across itself, and the difficulty it's got is they want to embrace a sort of agile and lean type mentality, but on the board they've got a director for planning and programs. They've got a director for what effectively is upfront architecture. And guess what? Those guys don't want to reduce their role. They don't want to reduce their power base. So they have this sort of forcing function back onto the organisation to prevent it changing. We're going to get off the negative stuff soon. We won't be down for very long.
So we end up with a very complex situation, especially when we try to scale up. So it's the size of the organisation, like Mike's just saying about this board where you've got a director there with maybe 1,000 people working for him. He's not going to give that power base up easily. We then start talking about complex systems of systems, and some of these clients, they really are out there building battleships. We've got distribution. There's been a lot of talk for many years about the realities of everybody wants to be co-located. That's brilliant, but the reality is we all end up distributed, particularly at scale. So that's another issue to deal with. And as you mix all of these things together, that's the definition of complexity, isn't it? You can't unravel all the problems. Everything's interacting with each other to work against you.
And that causes this kind of fear response, because it's all so complex, people get a bit scared of it all. And then when people are scared, they revert back to what they've done before that worked. And fear leads to the dark side and all that.
So how do we deal with that? Well, we've been fighting with this, wrestling with the problem for a number of years. And it started to gel into something about 18 months ago. So how can we apply these sort of higher level practices to pull that stuff together and resolve those problems? So if you're a small organisation, then great, just do this, this will work, this will help you. But when you're talking about those problems on the previous slide, the complexities of scaling, you need to think a bit broader.
So, given that the Empire struck back at us, we thought, well, we want to be the Jedis. We want to return. We want to try something out. We want to try and combine all that stuff, and we want to try and make it simple. And we want to do that by understanding mastery. There's a concept called shuhari, which I'm going to skip to. Anyone heard of that before? It's a bit vague. It's not often. Oh, well, that's unusual. Normally in software crowds, everyone goes, It's a martial arts term. It was based in Japanese educational theory. I do a lot of martial arts, so that's why, and I'm not going to ramble on about it too much. But it's an educational concept that goes along the lines of there's three forms of education, and there's a path to mastery called shu, ha, and ri. The shu bit is you get taught the rules and you follow the rules. The ha bit is you know how to apply the rules. You can use them in a context. You can, you don't have to go and refer to the slide deck in the book. You can just go and do them. The ri bit is mastery, and that's when you really understand it so much that you can throw away the rules. You don't need them anymore. So if you look at a martial arts master, they don't follow the rules. They don't stick with the things that are in the training manual and the things they teach the newbies. And often a master and a novice, from an external perspective, can look the same. Neither of them follow rules. But the novice is always on the floor, whereas the master is always in the right place at the right time. One of the difficulties I think we have as a software industry is we're an immature industry. And as we've tried to grow up and do things, we've swung from having more rules and having less rules. And every time we create some rules that we think are good and good representations of good philosophy, like Scrum, what we find is people start following the rules and not thinking for themselves. They go on 3 days worth of course and then say, I'm a master. Really? Part of mastery is experience. You have mastery, autonomy, purpose is the key motivators from Dan Pink's work. And mastery is made up of experience and talent. So have you heard of the 10,000 hour rule thing? If you do something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert in it. Well, that's rubbish as well. So some studies have recently looked at chess grandmasters. And some of them are really young, and they haven't been alive long enough to do 10,000 hours of chess. In fact, some of them have done 3,000 hours of chess. Talent is a relevant component, to this kind of stuff. There is no shortcut to mastery. There's no long cut either. You can't just do 10,000 hours and then say, no, I'm an expert in this stuff. So I've got 2 or 3 black belts in different martial arts. That doesn't make me an expert. It's a bit like learning to drive a car. All it means is I know enough to start learning. And what you find is you find that you know nothing.
I learned to fly a plane a few years ago, and when you take your pilot's license, it takes about 50 hours before they allow you to go loose in the thing after you've got about 12 hours. If you're on the ball, you'll go solo with about 12 hours, but you're still under instruction from the guy on the ground that's keeping an eye on what you do. After about 45 to 50 hours, most people will have got enough skill to pass the test. So obviously that's a big milestone in that journey. But my instructor, who'd done I think 60,000 hours on airliners and various light aircraft, and God knows what, he'd done all sorts. When I got to tick in the box, he said to me, the next 200 hours are the most dangerous of your life.
So we've talked a lot about the spirit of the manifesto. I don't suppose Anna's in the room. That would be fortuitous, wouldn't it? No, good. That's good, because I don't know what she's going to say, so I can't get it wrong now. There's this talk about follow the manifesto, tailor everything else, and we can be talking about that, but now we're going to talk about how we've codified that, which might seem at odds. And in a way it is. What we've written is some stuff that we think is based on our experience and the things that we've seen, to hopefully accelerate mastery and to feed in things from other people. So we've tried to condense what we know onto a single model that we can then use to try and address some of those problems. But it's not a rules-based thing. If people are trying to do it by following the rules, then they're getting it wrong. If people thought it says this, so we must do that, then that's not the point of it at all.
So we need the next one here, thanks. So Mike mentioned earlier about we're going to put another manifesto up here, and it's not by any means a replacement for the manifesto. The idea is that it extends it into a business environment, adds a few things to bring that that's agile team-based stuff to elevate it and actually push this agility stuff throughout an enterprise or large enterprise.
We also don't want anyone to sign it.
No. So there's a couple of additions here. So it's reducing layers of communication, encouraging collaboration. Next. Pushing this to try and emphasize the releasing. So this becomes a particular problem with systems of scale. Extending the roles of people that are involved in it throughout the enterprise, and pulling in, you know, good governance. Good governance does not mean necessarily just financial variance. It's across the stack. And the killer at the end, I guess, is at all levels of the business.
So, I think
responsiveness throughout the business, not just in the development teams.
And that's the biggest indicator of organisational agility, is how quickly you can respond to change, how quickly you can release stuff to your customers. So what we were trying to look at the business of doing software development, so extending the ideas of the manifesto to doing the business, because the agile ways of working are brilliant for doing software, but they're not designed to run a business. So sometimes people try and take them and say, I'm going to just do all my business like an agile thingy.
Has anybody tried to apply Scrum to a bunch of execs?
Have them do a backlog and a daily stand-up at a board meeting.
Don't work. I've never made it work.
No, because it's the wrong set of tools for the job. No? You need the right set of tools for different jobs. So we tried to extend the manifesto out a little bit. So what it is, it's a website of stuff, which is always changing. It's also a book, but it's not published yet, so don't even try and buy it. And it's free, completely free. You don't need us to use it. It doesn't even have adverts on the site. We're not trying to make money out of it, which is possibly stupid, but whatever. When we wrote this stuff, we wrote quite a lot of things about things, and we're not masters in everything by any means. So we wrote a whole bunch of stuff like about quality, and I sent it off to a guy I know who I think is a bit of a master in quality, and he came back with a couple of comments that we had to rewrite the whole thing. So, you know, you learn from that kind of stuff. What we're trying to do is create a body of knowledge, but not in the kind of classical sense of rules and artifacts and that kind of stuff. So we're going to explore it a little bit to see how the model works, because that's the important thing.
Familiar with that? V model? Ring any bells? Yeah? Anybody hate it? What are the problems with it?
So the V model was all about, it came from Waterfall actually. Originally there was just a long line model. It said if we do all the requirement stuff, then we do all the designy stuff, then the codey stuff, then the testy stuff, then we'll be done, yeah? And people said that's bonkers. What you want to do is fold up the bottom half and then join up like the requirements to the testing bit and the design to the assurance bit and the coding to the low-level testing bit. That was the idea of the V model. And then the problem with it is that people focused on this side or this side. I've heard people say, I work on the left-hand side of the V. I work in requirements and design, and that don't go over this side.
Totally missed the point of it, which is the join up across the line. So we've got, you know, your inception, your high-level requirements here should line up with your acceptance criteria, your acceptance test, user acceptance test.
It was also a little bit difficult to think about how loops work in that.
Well, they're just not represented, and I think it was kind of pre-iterative style of work.
Yeah. But people talked about having little V's and say big V's and all that kind of thing, but then it starts to get a bit confusing.
Well, what we've done is we've kind of split V and try to emphasise this join up, and as we get to the next couple of slides, you'll see what the importance of that in the centre of the age, and trying to emphasise the iterative stuff down here. So in the big model, in the big picture, this is where the agile team stuff fits.
So this is our H model. It's not huge. Lifesavers. We've got the same, it is the V model unfolded, right? So we've got things like requirements and architecture, that kind of stuff. And we've got the reintegration on the other side for that kind of stuff. Sorry, Steve. And we've got release planning joining up in the middle. And the way we look at this model is this applies to the software business as a whole. So Scrum fits in there, so does XP, so does whatever. Agile practices fit in there. And a lot of them often start, if you go to training courses on Agile, they start with having a backlog. So you start with your backlog to prioritize stuff, but where does it come from? Often the backlog vary. It's got to come from a place in an organization, from a direction or something. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's greenfield, but that's kind of unusual. Often it needs to be in the context of strategy. And we see people having practices like Prince 2. Anyone work in a Prince 2 environment here, or a sort of, yeah? And often the people that know about this stuff and the people that know about this stuff don't know how to talk to each other. They think there are odds, they think there's a conflict, and there isn't. There doesn't need to be. But there is if you just follow the rules, instead of following the spirit and the understanding. And the thing that does join them up is release planning and release doing, closing that feedback cycle of getting releases going as fast as you possibly can. So we tried to make this model so that the things across it are resonant, and the things that are vertically on it are resonant as well. So I just sort of have that model in the back of my head whenever I think about stuff. Whenever I think about things like feedback cycles. So there's a talk later on feedback cycles. Feedback cycles for me are the things that make Agile work. So at the lowest level we have the smallest possible feedback cycle is I wrote some code, I pressed compile, did it compile? That's a really, really low level feedback cycle. But then we have things like continuous integration to try and, make that work across teams. We can think about Agile and continuous delivery being a fast spinning cycle to get feedback on something. Interesting thing about feedback cycles though, is they only work if you close the cycle. So if you're just pushing stuff out, if you're doing a build every day, but no one's ever looking at the build, the customers aren't involved at release points, it's not a feedback cycle. It's just chucking stuff out every now and again.
So if you think about an Agile team, when as a coach you're starting with a team getting to do this feedback cycle with Scrum or whatever method you choose, often one of the problems that you'll encounter is that you raise your impediments and that you're just getting the same impediments raised every damn sprint. So you've got a breakage in the feedback cycle here. Now if you extend that right through the organisation, those feedback cycles here are broken. They tend to be broken before without even looking, they assume they're broken. The consequences of that for the organisation are immense.
Anyone ever been in an end of release product demo with no customers involved? I have. Yeah, a couple of people have. Often the project manager's there, but they're not a customer. So this idea of congruent feedback cycles, they need to all line up together, they need to work together to join up feedback in a business. And that's how we can get the principles of agility, of feedback and rapid responses working in an entire organisation. So zooming in a bit, we thought about trying to actually lay out the connections between stuff.
So this model, if you have a look at it, there aren't even any. There are several starting points. It's quite difficult to if somebody said to me, where do I start? In fact, we've had the problem in trying to put together the flow for the book, because you can dive in anywhere you like here, and what you get is a cross connection of the interrelated subjects, problem areas. So what we try to do is drive it from a sort of lean thinking at the top level here. So you can't see it terribly well on this slide, but there's a washed out here is this concept of establishing pull from the top of the organisation, and that should get the right sort of work flowing. It's got lower level practices built in. So in the requirement, the reporting stack here, there's a practice here that says go see. That's arisen from numerous times the execs have said to us, I need a report on this, I need to see how the teams are progressing, I need to know about how's our Agile adoption going, are we getting there, how's the cultural change happening?
Go and measure team productivity.
Yeah. Well, just go and have a look, go and talk to these guys, go and see.
So the idea of this model is it's got the H kind of thing, but in this part, you just leave the teams to do what they're doing. You know, you've got professionals that hopefully know what they're doing, otherwise why did you hire them? So you let them get on with it. The area to put focus is on integration and release. Joining that up to planning stacks, joining that up to strategy, reducing planning stacks wherever possible. This is complicated because it's about having a strategy, a portfolio, a program, and some projects. But you don't need that. If you've got a project that isn't related to other projects, it's not a program. Some organizations see that structurally, I must have that for everything. The way I do work is I have programs and projects and teams. That's nonsense. A program is a set of related projects that have to work together for some business value. If you don't have that, you just got projects work into the portfolio. And the portfolio isn't like a big management thing. It's just a bunch of milestones laid out in time and a budget. So we looked about how that would apply across different types of work as well, because that's just like, that was a model, and there are many. We can think about work in all sorts of different ways, like the work an organisation does can fit into kind of broad categories from really pioneering type stuff to kind of mainstreamy type stuff to very commoditized work. And lifecycle management is about this commoditization process. The faster you can commoditize, the faster you can outperform your competitors.
So the types of client that we're involved with now that are trying to get this agile, agile enterprise with big organizations, they tend to have a mix of all sorts of this stuff.
The interesting thing about these different types of work, though, is the same processes aren't necessarily applicable across them, nor are the same architectural controls or governance controls. They need different ways of working. So you can look at things like, in innovation and freeform work, really you want free-form ad hoc ways of working. I wouldn't even make them say, you've got to do agile stuff. You want them unconstrained by things like enterprise architecture. You want people to just be able to do whatever they need to do to invent new stuff and remove any possible barrier to that. Where you've got your mainstream kind of stuff, that's where your agile iterative stuff fits. Whether that's classic iterative or whether it's agile iterative, it all fits there and works quite well. Over at a utility commodity side, that's where things like service management type workflows, things like Kanban work really well over there as well. So if you've got that kind of way of looking at a portfolio in a business, you can think of different organizational structures working for different parts of it. So the specialist portfolio things where Agile, that's where its home is. That's where people tend to apply these practices really well. So you've got project teams, you might have forums, you have cells, you might have occasional programs where necessary, but the less the better. You might also then in research just have our research and innovation teams just doing whatever they want to do. You might have things like incubators to pull through from innovation into mainstream engineering. You can have different cultures, different ways of working, different tools, practices, coexisting peacefully. You don't need a monoculture where everybody does things the same way. If you have, don't call it agile, because it's not. So we said in our abstract, we put a bunch of questions and said, we're going to use this stuff to answer these questions. So, Steve, you got -1 minute?
Yeah. So the first one,
sorry.
Can we, is your time to market quick enough? Well, how can we see that from a model? Just go to the next slide. So the key indicator of that is how fast you can push things through this whole process to get the business acceptance. So a key indicator of agility for any organisation is how quick they can get from that to that.
Which is basically how fast is your outermost feedback loop. And that's constrained by how fast the inner ones are.
Interesting challenge at the moment from with the accelerating change in technology, Internet of Things and stuff like that. That change cycle is now faster than most organisations can make decisions.
Of course, it's a massive problem.
A hell of an impact on these guys. So,
so we've talked a lot about that. So
let's skip that. That's how does your work contribute to business value? Just skip to the model. So there should be just, in this model, there's 3, maximum 4 steps from user story to strategy. If you don't know what your work is contributing to, then you shouldn't be doing it really.
When we put this model up, it's got a lot of detail in, and the things aren't important. None of them are important. It's not like a list of artifacts. The thing that's important is the join up between them. It's the blue bits, the lines between things that are relevant. The actual, what you put in the middle is pretty irrelevant. Really.
So the last one was kind of, yeah. So if you can't answer that, you've got a problem with your release plan.
So we use this in a bunch of ways. We've used it for doing things like project reviews. This is a case study from a government department.
We use this model to, there was a project that we were asked to look at that had been, I think they were into year 5 of a 2-year project.
I'm not going to name and shame them.
And they asked us to investigate and make some recommendations.
So we didn't look at the artifacts. We looked at the information flows and what they were connected to. And then we got a spray can out and spray painted the bits that they were doing badly. Interesting thing about it is the teams, the Agile teams, were doing a great job. They were iterating. I went to one of them and said, oh, what's your velocity like? And they said, oh, it's a tricky question because, it varied because we were doing a startup and now we're coming towards the end, so it's going like that. But that was a high maturity answer, right? So that was good. The teams were doing the best they could, but they were doing it in the absence of strategic context, requirements context, and integration. So when they tried to build their stuff at the end, it just didn't fit. So finally, we've run a little late because we like to ramble on. Sorry about that. If you want to use this stuff, you just can. It's free. We don't have, like I said, there aren't even adverts on it. So it's not meant to be a big framework to adopt. It's meant to be the glue that sticks together your other stuff. So you can just grab those other elements and join them up together. It's indicative, not prescriptive. It's not about rules and that kind of stuff. If you wanted to try looking at those scaling problems, we'd recommend you focus on the release plan and the integration scenarios, getting end-to-end integration working and doing that as rapidly as you possibly can. So, thanks for coming along. If you're interested in it, we've got little cardy things which have got like pictures on and the model on that you can have if you want. You can look at it on the web, you can follow us on Twitter. The slides just went out on Twitter about half an hour ago, or maybe a bit earlier because I got the timing wrong. So all that stuff is out there on the web if you want to grab it. We'd love to know what you think. We'll be here all day if you want to grab coffee and chat. And sorry for going a little bit over. I always do. So thank you very much for your attention.